Thank you for joining Change I Am Possible, which is India's first future tech podcast. Sincerely appreciate and honored to have you on the show. So for my listeners who don't know about you, I'm just going to give them a little brief. So Mr. Siim Sikkut is the government Chief Information Officer of Estonia. He's also titled as Deputy Secretary General for IT and Telecom in Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications. Siim is one of the founders of Estonia's groundbreaking E-Residency program. He was also nominated to Apolitical's 2018 and 2019 list of world's top 20 most influential people in digital government. Honored to have you on the show, Siim. Really appreciate you taking time and being part of the show. So tell me, because of COVID-19, we are all confined. Estonia doesn't seem to be that case. At least in India, we've been impacted terribly. We don't really know what's going to happen next. We are living in uncertain times. COVID-19 seems to have accelerated digital technology. Now, you guys are the pioneer when it comes to digital tech adoption as a nation. So, do you view COVID-19 as an opportunity for Estonia?
Well, first of all, Eddie, thanks for having me. Exactly. It's always an honor to speak from such a small place like Estonia to such a huge place like India, right? We always jokingly say that, look, for every one of us, there's thousands of you at least. So we envy, if we had so many people, what we could do, right? No, but on a serious note, you're quite right. I think COVID-19, I'm very optimistic about, in a sense that, I hope this understanding of the importance of digital will stay. And I guess we'll see how the pandemic plays out. You're right, there's a lot of uncertainty there. How it will evolve in the next months. Are there going to be vaccines? When they come? When is the whole thing going to be over or not? But fundamentally, I hope through that, exactly the notion that digital, it pays to be digital stays. I think Estonian case is an example of that, in a sense that you're right. We have been on a digital journey as a nation, as a government for more than 20 years now. And so for us, if we now, in middle of March, as we had to switch overnight to not like a full lockdown, but essentially like a special or emergency situation nationwide, and schools got closed, workplaces, you were not encouraged to go there. So we had to switch to remote work, remote services by government, remote schooling, everything. It was not that much of a deal because these services had been in place anyways. And we have been used to them and sort of, doing things in that way anyways. So obviously, yes, it was a special time for us as well, because nobody had been at home, for such prolonged periods of time. And, children still were used to going to school and so forth, but fundamentally, digital infrastructure and services were there. So we saw it pays to be digital because our society was not disrupted because of these times. And we hope that exactly this gives a bit of inspiration for us too.
You said it pays to have, so many people. If you have, but, I feel we were having this conversation and I mentioned, giving the example of David and Goliath. I think you guys are the David in the world. And I think with this COVID-19 and this current situation that we are in, I think we're living in a fantastic time. It's very unnatural for me to say that we're living in a fantastic time with the COVID-19. But if you see, COVID-19 has been that kind of like a awakening point to the entire world, where we have realized, okay, that the 3.5 months that we have been on lockdown, we have really benefited Earth, right? We were killing it. Besides that, we've kind of like actually understood that we could be more productive from home, rather than, spending 1 or 2 hours traveling from your home to work, and with your fossil fuel vehicles, damaging the environment, things like that. There's so much that we can do to be better citizens and save a country, save a world. So I think COVID-19 has kind of at least brought that point to a wider audience and made them realize that this could be an opportunity. And like you rightfully mentioned, you guys seem to have not been disrupted or impacted like the rest of the world. For us, India, going suddenly digital, where the schools have stopped, your work has stopped, it's almost something which we are completely not ready for. Where so yes, I mean, obviously it's not that we're not digitized as a country. We've been doing we're taking these small incremental steps, but you as a country, Estonia has been on this for the longest time. So I believe the small and big countries, I think, no longer are an issue. It's what you do, the choices that you do will decide the future. So tell me, you've been
also... If I can briefly jump in, just to offer a comment in the direction that you highlighted. What's been amazing to see in this pandemic as well is two things from my point of view. First of all, most and many of the tools we need to handle, basically the shift now to, for example, even remote work, they have been there. So it's basically just been a question of, we have not been using them. So just like you rightly say, I mean, as opposed to, traveling a few hours, commuting to work, or all the business travels we have been doing, flying from place to place, just, join some meetings or whatever. We can handle these things with tools that have been on the market anyway. So it was just a question of adoption of them. Same thing in government. I mean, whether it's Estonia, there are many great countries, governments around the world who have done different digital amazing things. These things exist often. You can just basically copy them or even take them if they're open source, and you don't have to reinvent those wheels. So my point being that in a way, it's a great challenge to adapt now. But at the same time, so many of the things to adapt with the tools exist. And so I think in that sense, we are also in a lucky position. We don't have to reinvent all those wheels. Obviously, there's also space for innovation. So I'm not saying that COVID is special in many cases too, but fundamentally, it's like a virtuous crisis in a way. I would agree.
These technologies such as augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, IoT, blockchain, everybody knows about it. Everybody talks about it. We go to conferences and then we talk about it, and everybody wants to create that digital transformation. But when it comes to implementation, we pretty much so, because change does not come easy. Talk is easy, implementation is not that. So tell me, you have been the force behind Estonia's E-Residency program. Can you talk about it a little bit, and how and when was it incepted?
Well, it wasn't just me. It was quite a big team. And even in terms of like we said, co-founders, there were several of us. One of them, my predecessor, Govt, actually works extensively in India now, by the way, helping exactly some of the digital advancement there. But E-Residency was born out of two necessities. But first of all, we used to have the digital services for entrepreneurs to set up your company, to run your company, to manage everything, the red tape around the company. We used to have that anyway, but it was locked to that you had to physically come to Estonia for that. And so we realized, but hey, we have these partners, and the investors, be them from India or elsewhere. Why don't we make it easier for them to actually manage the companies in Estonia? And so that was like the initial use case. But then it was, Taavi and a few others who said, look, hey, it could be actually a bigger opportunity. I mean, if the services are great, perhaps people, will want to use them without ever having any relation to Estonia so far. So we threw it out there. We tested if there's interest, and it was mind-blowing for us how well it was received. So basically now we have people from all over the world applying for E-Residency, which means that you get the digital identity, the digital ID to use as a key to our digital services ecosystem. And with that, they set up companies, they run them from abroad, and many of them from India as well. And the reason being that they want to be trusted in European Union single market. So as an Estonian company, exactly, you have an easier access to selling and invoicing or whatever in Europe. Or secondly, they want to roam the world, like digital nomads, as we say, right? So, today they might be in, Mumbai or Bombay or Kolkata, or, tomorrow they might be Bali, and then the next day in London. And to operate like that, you need to somehow still have a base jurisdictionally. So we offer a nice way to have that.
What are your views on, these walls that countries like America are planning to build? What are your views on borders? Because E-Residency program says, okay, I mean, everybody can come in. I mean, because here our country is open for entrepreneurs who want to make a difference. What are your views on people who are building walls and creating barriers and boundaries?
Well, Estonia, with our 1.3 million people, we don't afford to have those walls. I mean, we are built on a fundamentally open model, open economy model, ever since we restarted the country in 1991. And that's been really for the realization that, look, I mean, everybody's better off if we trade, if we move, and so forth. So yeah, it is not in our DNA, I would even say at this point, to really talk about wars and etc. I mean, and secondly, we realize the benefits of flow, if I can use that word. So we are quite happy if Estonians leave and come back, or even if they stay abroad but still stay connected as a diaspora. I mean, obviously India knows everything about this diasporas. So it's about the flow that we might get you here for a year, or we might get you affiliated to Estonian economy as an e-resident from abroad. But that's okay too, because still contribute something, and you're part of the community. If it's a tech community, if it's a business community, if it's something else. So my point being that we're happy the more friends there are, the more there's flow of talent, of ideas, of capital people. So for us, that's the only way to survive being as small as we are.
Right. So what has your experience been? I mean, with digitization, obviously there are a lot of pros, right? But I'm sure there's a lot of a bit of cons also. So what's the journey been so far? 20 years of Estonia being digitized. What are the pros and what are the cons?
Sure. No, but it's always easy to talk about 20 years in 5 minutes. But it's been a journey indeed. I mean, look, first of all, we don't have everything perfect. I mean, there's still stuff that we are struggling with. Be it exactly in the case, for example, how to make the best use of data that we have in the government. We've been a bit so slow there. But we don't really see cons, if I'm very honest with you. And there's a particular reason for that. We acknowledge that there are risks we have to deal with. So basically, digitization can go wrong. But that's not a con. It's a con if you don't manage it well. So let me give you an example. So issues of privacy or issues of cybersecurity, these are risks we have to well account for. We have to understand that, for example, the way we build our registries, or the way we build services for citizens, we need to do it in a way that we don't violate the trust, which means that we have to keep the system secure. We have to build in safeguards, legally speaking, procedurally speaking, technically speaking, that allow them to make sure that we don't misuse their data, for example. But these are the things we have to do in order to be digital. It's not like a con or the counter argument why not to be digital. So I hope I'm making sense, but that's at least that we have seen that again. There's so much to be gained from going digital in terms of time we save for our entrepreneurs, the efficiency we bring to the people in the daily lives, even that they don't have to queue in offices and so forth. Our government delivers better because whether it's ensuring the streets are safe or people can be healthy, or even bureaucracy is smaller, all the way to court system, that all these things, the benefits can be so great that we just have to deal to make sure that we can, put the enablers in place, the right infrastructure, the right sort of legal environment, the right sort of skills for people, and then they can, the cons don't reveal themselves.
Yeah, so with digitization, obviously, I mean, there's a larger section of people who don't like change. People are pretty much used to the way things are functioning. For example, in India, I mean, we are a huge country, 1.3 billion people. We have an Aadhaar card, we have a PAN card, we have a passport, but still, today, you walk into a government office, everything is still papers. So yes, I'm not saying that we are not making an effort. I think we're making a fantastic effort with Aadhaar card. I think it's a brilliant initiative, but it's not being conversed together, and the benefits are still not being seen. Hopefully, maybe things in the near future, things will get a little bit more clearer on the benefits of it. So you have been fronting AI governance, which you're calling the AI National Kratt strategy. Okay, can you just run through us what it is?
Yes. So for the last, I think it's almost 2 years now, we've been building out and delivering on our national AI strategy. The point being that, well, first of all, I think all the governments have one. I think India has one too, right?
Right.
And secondly speaking, we see that for us, artificial intelligence can be such a significant next level boost to what we have been doing so far. And I'll explain what I mean. Our fundamental problem is that we don't have enough people to do all the things we need to do. And mind you, we are also not small, but we are also shrinking. So aging and shrinking. So for us, if the more we can rely on machines, for example, I put it that crudely, to get the routine jobs done in office environment, in a factory, in transportation, whatever, the better, because then we can sort of have people do much more valuable jobs, and economically speaking, as well as in terms of the personal aspirations. So for our point of view, the regular argument against AI that there will be people jobless doesn't really hold. For us, it's a boon if we can have people just doing things that are of bigger value. And so realizing this, we started actually heavily looking, okay, how can we boost the uptake of AI? We are quite realistic that we will not be the birthplace for the next scientific inventions of that, but we have always tried to be really quick and thorough adopter of things that might be useful for us. That's why we started, with internet technologies back in the 90s that led to digital government. That's why it's AI these days. So it comes from this realization, and we've been especially doing stuff in public sector. In our particularity is that public sector is digitally more advanced than most of private sector. And so we now literally are trying to take experimentation with AI to all different ministries, sectors, fields, policies, and just to basically, have them taste it out and get the ball rolling and going. And I'm quite happy to say it's starting to roll.
Right. So can you run me through a couple of implementations of this AI
sure.
use cases? Yeah.
Sure. No, I mean, we see many low-hanging fruits, even with today's sort of narrow level of AI technology, meaning, specifically trained machines. One of my favorite examples is that, look, your phone and my phone, it can transcribe already the text we speak, right? Mind you, it might be English only, but fundamentally, it's in our daily pockets, so to speak. But still, we have had people working in our parliament, in our courts, to do the transcription of official meetings, do the protocols of those meetings. Why? So basically, we are now just training sort of machines to understand Estonian language. We have our own beautiful language. So and then we don't need to have those people just doing the meaningless job of just typing stuff up that they hear. Very concrete use case. Secondly, there's a lot of stuff on how to be more more targeted, more effective in the work that government does, for example, for inspections. I mean, we used to send inspectors, whether that's for tax or for other reasons, blindly out, just somehow risk-based, trying to understand, okay, which companies to somehow oversee, or how to make sure that the grants are not being misused. They just went to random plots in the countryside. Now they're, for example, in the agriculture field, using satellite imagery to then understand, okay, is the plot being used properly? And so they go in to inspect in person only if there's, machine says, okay, there's now some trouble there. So we are much more targeted in just making sure that grants go to the right purpose and are properly used, and that effectively public spending brings an impact, for example. Or the third thing, and I mean, this is no news, we see that we can take fundamentally the sort of user experience or the interactions with the government to the next level. And this is not live yet. So this is something we're trying to build out now. But look, the Siris in iPhones, or the Google Assistants, or the Cortanas in Microsoft. So basically our world will, we believe, inevitably move to voice-based virtual assistants.
Right.
You telling Siri to get something done. That's how you find your next restaurant, or whatever. So we see that us as a government, that's our chance to actually move to those channels as well. So basically, government interaction could be exactly a Siri away, as opposed to you somehow finding out of a website that we have to build, or an app we have to download, and then you get access to the service. So we are effectively trying to move, our interactions to virtual assistants and build out the sort of interoperable backend ecosystem of both private sector and government virtual agents that will handle your stuff for you.
Right. So you mentioned that, I mean, you don't see a job impact with AI. So I've been a tech proponent, right? I've been invested in the AR, VR, MR space since 2016. But I do know that technology is growing exponentially. And yes, it's predicted 40% of these traditional Fortune 500 companies are going to go defunct. So is the traditional industries such as your education, your brick and mortar education systems, which are so hung up with their traditional legacy functioning, because they don't see that, you have this online flood of education which is happening, which is free, of course. There's massive open online courses. So that these are small examples which I'm giving you. But, with the growing nature of technology, the way it's growing exponentially, I do frankly see that maybe not now, but possibly in another 5 to 10 years, automation is already on the way. I mean, there will be job loss. How, in that scenario, are you looking at universal basic income? What is the future case scenario where automation grows to a level where, I'm not saying not even like a decade, I'm saying maybe like a 2 decade or more, where automation comes in a way that it's doing anything and everything what a human can do much, much better. What happens in a world like that? Is Estonia prepared for something like that?
Well, 2 things. First, as the first thing, I'm not saying that we don't see jobs impact. I'm saying that we see the jobs impact as a desirable thing. And I think that was really sort of the point just trying to get across that our problem is that we have a mismatch in terms of, let's say, this, the current structure in the labor market. So basically where people work and where there's basically more work to be done. So if we can, release them to the labor market and then add in, retraining or educational efforts, then actually, they can do much more valuable jobs. So that was my point. And even if I look at, say, some of the examples you brought, in most professions, we have a lack of, in today's model, or today's sort of work modes or operational modes, we lack people. Teachers, there's a shortage of them. Medical work, the same thing. So my point being that if we can somehow have machines augment the work that people do in those professions today, and the workers that are there today, actually can learn additional skills to then coexist and, use the augmentation of machines, that would be a sweet spot. So this is what we're aiming for. Not saying that we don't see jobs impact, but that we rather say that it's an impact that could actually benefit us to be more sort of efficient on the next scale. My second point being, look, you're asking a tough question. We don't have 30 years ahead of strategy in terms of if machines are able to do almost anything and everything better than the people, and what happens then. First of all, quite frankly, it's quite far off still a scenario. I don't think realistically we can plan ahead more than 10 years anyway. In tech, we're talking about 2-3 years max. But I hear you when it comes to education, and a lot of the sort of effectiveness of the responses comes down to education. As we feel, we have to think 10 years ahead, just because of the lag in the educational delivery and output is so great, right? With K-12 and 4 years of uni and whatever. So we see that the response has to go through education, and clearly we have to get much better in sort of lifelong learning parts, retraining, stuff like that. People having different careers. So we have been for the last 2-3 years now experimenting with different labor market and educational measures to see that how can we, support transition, especially to higher technical skills among those people who used to, study, 30 years ago. So we are seeing what works and what not, but we don't have a perfect solution yet. But we would like to bring it to education. Yeah.
So are you looking at building some kind of partnerships with India and Estonia? Because, there is so much talent over here. And Estonia is a beautiful country. I always say this to my wife. When I have a 5-year-old kid, I say, when my son grows up, I'm not sending him to America. I'm not sending him to UK. If I have to send him for abroad, I will be sending him to either Bhutan. That's my first priority. Or Estonia. Sweden. I'm definitely not sending him to US. You guys are a beautiful country. I think you're doing beautiful things. So is there any bridge that you intend to build between Indian and Estonian entrepreneurs?
Well, first of all, thank you for the very kind words. I'll hold you to that. So just a few more years, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, Bhutan's a tough competition, so it's going to be tricky. We'll figure out something. Well, so yes, I mean, we would like to extend and build those bridges way more. I think that they currently exist. And it goes sort of both ways. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talent and a lot of also ideas in India and stuff that actually, could be transplanted from there to our sort of environment and the other way around. I mean, some of the bridges that exist, as I said before, some of the Estonian tech experts and companies have been working with some of the companies in India, trying to transfer some of the digital government and solutions knowledge all the way to like digital identity, how to make Aadhaar better, and so forth. It's been a bit small scale. We're only happy to extend that because fundamentally, look, I mean, Estonia, not even Estonia, a lot of digital solutions have to be homegrown, not only because of culture and language and governance differences, but also even scale. Like we can never build at the scale of India. We just don't know how, right? So, but if we complement with some of the know-how that perhaps, Estonian tech community has, there might be something in there. I might even be building for the third countries, I mean, beyond India. The other way around, I think we've been more successful in building the bridges the other way around. We have welcomed Indian entrepreneurs to E-Residency program. We have welcomed them to join our sort of startup community here, whether on startup visa or just going to work with some of the great tech companies and unicorns we have here. So I think looking at the size of India, this obviously just drops in the ocean. But from our point of view, these are valuable bridges that can only build further. So we'll be only happy to.
Right. Yeah, so yes, I mean, I really hope that we have like more bridges being built between countries. I really hope that these borders which divide us falls apart and we get into a beautiful world where we connect with each other more and we build businesses that really help the planet. So I believe that we living in fantastic time and technology, I think, is going to play a huge role in making this world better. So, with the rate of the technology growth, especially in the artificial intelligence, so at this point in time, it's in a narrow space. It can do only one specific thing, but it can do that thing way better than any human can do. We currently have so many problems in the world that it's not funny, and especially with COVID-19. I think we're living in trying times, uncertain times, especially the countries which have been disrupted by COVID-19. Luckily, Estonia is not one of those countries. India definitely is one of those countries which has been disrupted. The politicians, the policymakers are largely in most of the countries, including possibly my country, is very self-serving. Do you see AI growing to a stage where we could have AI governance? Not just when I say AI governance, where we have these bits and pieces of it, where we have maybe like a elected leader, a president or prime minister, but an artificial intelligence.
I'll be very honest with you. It's very hard for me to see that for one particular reason. You said before that talked about the reluctance to change or to change the way you work, right? And obviously there are two things that sort of are at play here. Well, first of all is that why are people reluctant to change? I don't think it's just basically, I don't believe it's that much a cultural issue. It's often comes to incentives. So it's very hard for me to see, practically speaking, that human leaders would have incentives to give away their role in terms of power and running the countries like that, or even let's say, I mean, it's not just a question of leaders in democracies, of course, that that people go so far to actually start trusting some machine more than the human leaders. I'm not conservative on this. I'll be happy to, I'm very cautiously, carefully following the experiments that I think some companies have done, and around that, to have board members as AI assistant. But yeah, I'm just, a bit to the, I would say, realistic side. I don't see this going beyond the national leaderships anytime soon. But hear me out on the other thing. I still come back to, but it's, to me, this discussion is not about substitution. It's still about, sort of, as the buzzword goes, augmentation. I mean, national leaders, governments, presidents, whatever, civil servants like myself, being helped by, smart assistants and AI systems, by all means. I'm only hoping that this will grow fast enough. But replacing is a different story.
On that note, it was lovely talking to you and getting your views. Any last words? And what is your future vision? What do you see Estonia in another 10 years?
Well, in another 10 years, first of all, I hope that we have a very specific target when it comes to digital government of ours. I'll start with that. Basically, we want to get away from people's lives. We want to get rid of the interactions and services, make them as natural, be it sort of, your phone based or otherwise, that you don't somehow see that I'm interacting with the government now. I have some prerogative to take care of. Stuff just happens for you. That's the sort of experience that we want to build, at least in Estonia here. Beyond that, well, I think my last words would be that to say that, look, I hope that the COVID situation in India gets way better, and whether it's to fight off this pandemic or otherwise, if Estonian expertise and solutions and the tech community can be of any help to big India and your challenges, we'd be only happy to talk and share and build something together.
Lovely. Siim, thank you. And I think going forward, together, collaborative model is going to be the main key if you want to make the world a better place. Because like I said in the beginning, I mean, you don't need to be like a big country or small country. The things that you do and the value you add, we didn't speak about the proactive service, but that's so brilliant, where you as a government is taking an initiative and helping people. That's so very awesome. And I think technology as a tool will only augment us and help us. And we need to, like I said, I mean, we need to use it in a way where we help us in this role ahead of us, the evolution of a mankind, and I think we'll be in a beautiful time. This COVID could just be one of those minor roadblocks which has come and which has woken up the world and made everybody realize the importance of coming together, being together, and obviously technology, I think, which is going to be the tool, like I said, which is going to be redefining our future. And on last note, I think Estonia is an exemplary nation, a leader, which what you're doing. I think if most of the countries, even if they realize the importance of digitization and what you have done, you have everything out in the open, your transparency and trust model, which is, I think, fantastic. I think the rest of the countries just need to follow that, and I think we'll be a much better world. So really appreciate, Siim, you being part of Change and Possible podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to my listeners, if you like what you see and hear, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Siim.